Good to go. Great. I will call this meeting of the Holyoke Redevelopment Authority to order at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, April 16th.
No, it's okay.
Pursuant to Mass open meeting law, notice is hereby given that there will be a regular meeting of the HRA. This meeting is being held in a hybrid format. And the meeting is being recorded. Matters listed on the agenda are those reasonably anticipated by the chairperson, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Can I have a roll call, please?
Daphne Board,
Yes.
Tiffany Espinosa. Yes. Thomas Creed.
Yes.
Carl Eaker,
Present.
Patrick Beaudry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. First order of business is the approval of HRA meeting minutes from February 19th. Have folks had a chance to review those minutes? Carl, I know you were absent.
Presuming, Mr. Chairman, that there have been no changes from what copies we received, I move approval.
Second. Okay. Any discussion? Another roll call, please.
Daphne Board,
Yes.
Tiffany Espinosa. Yes. Thomas Creed,
Yes.
Carl Eaker,
Yes.
Patrick Beaudry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. I think I'm turning the next one over to Steph, because financial report, is that?
John?
Sure. But it seems to be a relatively standard information in terms of nothing unusual in terms of changes since the last update, which was, I believe, what was it, November of 24, the annual meeting. Just highlighting a couple transactions and these are all, I think, standard course of business. The transfer to Holyoke of the Jackson Canal loan payments, we do that twice a year. A small fee for some property management. Our annual property general liability insurance payment was made to Dowd Insurance. We're still talking to Dowd about trying to get some clarity on different coverages, but that's consistent with what we've been paying for the last several years. We received a small payment of $900 for the sale of 160 Middle Water Street that represented 2% of the sale price, and then some bank account interest. I think the rest of the items are pretty standard, except for the license agreement with the bottom of the real estate notes with Beyond Walls. I believe the agreement's been completed. It's been executed.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Nothing that unusual. You can see there's been a slight decrease in available funds, less than $1,000. So pretty consistent with the last report.
Questions from the board? Carl?
Translation, any check stones?
No.
Did I hear you say no?
No.
No.
Move approval.
Any other questions?
I'll second the motion, and just to remind me, you may not know this off the top of your head, when is the Holyoke loan?
I believe it goes to December 26th, so it's still got about a year and a half left.
Thanks.
And, Jackson Canal would be great to work with in terms of repayment.
Thanks.
Great. Any other discussion? Great. Can I have roll call, please?
Patrick Beaudry.
Yes.
Carl Eager,
Yes.
Thomas Creed.
Yes.
Tiffany Espinosa. Yes. Daphne Board.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So moving on.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I see there's a letter from Lion Fitzpatrick regarding South Holyoke homes. So I think I'll kick it back over to staff.
I can comment on it since I
Please.
have probably most familiarity with it. Basically, and this has been reviewed with Attorney Mantaleski, and the request is they are forming a separate LLC for the phase 2 part of the project, and it is basically an entity that's Holyoke Housing Authority. I think it's called Housing Innovation Partnerships. They have a subsidiary, and the reason they're doing it is because some of the managing directors are a little bit different. They did form a phase 1 limited partnership, but the managing partners at the time were exactly the same. There's a slight difference. So talking with Sarah Meyer-Zimler this morning, she indicated that that's the reasoning why their counsel suggested we do this assignment. And as part of the assignment, they need HRA's consent. And in reviewing it with Jane, it does align with our master development agreement. Again, talking with Sarah this morning, she said it does also offer the HHA some protection on reinvesting some of the federal funds that they received, just because they're trying to make sure that they can reinvest proceeds back into projects and things like that. So it appears to be a standard course of business. And again, I shared it with Jane, and looks proper. So to the extent of it, a couple, just touching a couple minor updates before the Housing Authority after the board's considered this.
Attorney Mantaleski, anything else we should be thinking about?
No, I think John said everything.
Excellent. We get a board seat out of the deal? Other questions from the board?
I'm assuming you need approval.
Approval for the assignment.
So move.
Second.
Any other discussion? Another roll call, please. Jeff?
Patrick Baldry?
Yes.
Carliger?
Yes.
Thomas Creed?
Yes.
Tiffany Espinosa? Yes. Daphne Board?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. 216-191 Appleton Street.
Or just to mention.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah,
Okay,
please.
okay. So just a couple of quick things. I know a couple of board members had the opportunity to join I'm sure the topping of a house of the duplex and the modular home. It was pretty neat to see how that was done. The houses look really good, and it's amazing how equipped they are already when they set them in place. And so that was a nice event. And thanks to the board members that could join, I think it was great to see the progress down there. Sarah did mention this morning that there are some new and exciting things, and they're happening, and they're trying to expedite the entire project as much as possible, as well as look at other projects with the Housing Authority, and that she'd be more than happy to come in and provide an update in an upcoming meeting. She did say that May 5th, they're going to start accepting applications, I believe, for the phase 2 houses, so that's good. That's about it.
Yeah. Just on a personal note, I'm fortunate enough to go by there every Friday morning, serving on Kate's Kitchen. And it's amazing, not that long ago, what that area looked like versus what it looks like now. What a vast improvement. And when I'm driving through, what a nice feeling.
Yeah.
To think that, what for, but it's happening.
Yeah, I agree.
But to see it is to really get the feel.
I think I might have shared with the board, when you were out, Carl, I was so enthralled with how the project is coming out that I accidentally drove the wrong way down the road. Staring at the building. So yeah, point well taken. Very impressive.
I just should mention also, there are some other related lots that Holyoke Housing has some ideas about in South Holyoke that are in the URP, in the Master Development Agreement, but not as part of their plan. So there may be some interesting possibilities to move in some other directions, a couple other vacant lots in that area. So we'll get more detail on that with Sarah, which we will.
Thank you, John. 216-131 Appleton Street, see Hagup's on. Did you want to set the table at all?
Yeah, I think,
Can you hear me?
Karen and I can, but
Okay.
I'll take a stab at it. You know, and today, given, we received some information from Hagup a couple days ago. We had some really good discussions with him about some alternative ways to approach phase two that may offer some more assurance that the project can happen on time, or maybe, we're always trying to push the envelope to have things happen quicker, but there was a few documents that were shared with the board, and I think, today is an introduction to it. I don't think we're I don't think we're in a position to really dive too far into it, in terms of any kind of request for approval or anything like that, but it is a concept that we're interested in working with Lynn and Hagup on, and I know Jane just got the document, I believe, yesterday also, so she's, I'm not sure to what extent she's had a chance to look at some of the joint venture type opportunities that are there. So, but basically, we asked Hagup to come in and give an brief update on where things are with phase one, and also to give a summary about what the concept is for moving forward here. So, okay.
Hey, how are you?
Good to see everyone. So yeah, to start with how phase one is going, I'm sure you can see we are about 90% of the way through construction and really entering the wrap-up phase of everything. Many of the units are fully complete on the fourth floor especially. So those are locked up and waiting for the residents to come. The community building is getting very close and will be seeking its certificate of occupancy as soon as we get the permanent power connected. We did reach a great milestone on the power when our switchgear was delivered. That can be a long lead item that delays projects. We were fortunate to get it, and we're expecting the permanent power to be turned on mid-May, as well as the water for the whole project. And so that would enable the community building completion and to start the lease-up process in the mill. We have been advertising the project very actively. I'm sure you've seen some of that. And the lottery is actually tomorrow at City Hall. I was speaking with John and Aaron about it. The lottery is kind of the first step in filling the building. Many people will get through the lottery and be placed in apartments, but not everyone who wins a place turns out to be qualified on the income. So there will be an opportunity for people to keep, if they get in after tomorrow, there will still be a chance to live there. We have about 200 people in the lottery who have submitted full applications, which is a lot because to submit that application, you really are interested for 88 spots. And like I said, we expect many more will continue to roll in. The project's been really advertised the way we might do a market rate project. It's on many of those platforms, apartments.com, Zillow. For people who have never lived in affordable housing before, don't think of themselves as affordable housing residents, but who in fact qualify. And we're getting a lot of interest from those platforms because this really is, it looks like a market rate product. It feels that way. And the types of people who live there might be surprised that they qualify. So that's all to say, construction is steaming along. Occupancy will follow. I think we're still looking at an August date for the first people truly moving in, but we'll have units leased before then. The goal is to have as many leased as possible over the summer, and definitely looking at full occupancy in the fall. Every single unit will be filled this year. So that brings us to phase two. One big milestone reached that I think created some energy and momentum was we got the National Park Service and Mass Historic approval to remove a couple of those very dilapidated structures in the smokestack, which makes phase two more feasible. with that in mind, we're really thinking about how to get this funded as quickly as possible on the state level. And the idea came up that if the HRA served as the formal partner, the way you have on UPP applications, the way you have on certain other funding for this project, it would really accelerate things because funding tends to flow faster to municipal and public partners. And so that's where this ownership structure conversation starts. It's not by any means something that novel or unprecedented. I think the memo I sent laid out a few recent projects where Win has done this with resident or tenant partners in the city of Boston. And I think that's helpful to keep in mind because it underscores that all the responsibility is really with Win. All the financial responsibility, the guarantees, the liability, just as it would be if we were working with tenants as the partner. There's no expectation that HRA would take any liability or responsibility. There would be some financial participation, of course, for the HRA as part of their role in the ownership, but that financial participation wouldn't come with responsibility. There is a model, I believe, in Holyoke that the Housing Authority, I think, formed an entity for the Churchill Homes redevelopment and did something very similar to what the HRA would do here. So it's a pretty tried and true model in these public-private partnerships. And we found that it can really help get projects funded. I think just to give an idea of how much it would help in terms of timing, we're looking at potentially 2 years or more that this would be accelerated by the HRA's partnership. If HRA is involved in ownership, we could apply for our full suite of state resources as soon as the next round, which is, it starts this fall. Otherwise, we're looking at 1, 2, multiple year longer wait. So with that, I think any questions or discussion?
Appreciate it. Questions from the board?
Nice to hear.
I do have, sorry, this is Jane Manteleschi. I'm from the solicitor's office. I do have some questions. I think they're pretty specific, hang-up, so I don't know if it's better to do those in some email correspondence. I know we've, talked before, but I do have some pretty specific questions related to the type of financing that you are going to be applying for from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities and HRA's role with respect to that and this property. So I don't know I would like to have a more in-depth conversation about it. I just got this yesterday and took a look, but I would like to have some more details. And I think that could probably, I don't know if this is the place or otherwise.
We should definitely set up a call or further email conversation with any questions you have. I will say in terms of the types of financing, it would be very similar to what is on phase 1. So it'd be the 4% low-income housing tax credits, the historic tax credits that HRA has already served as the applicant for on both phase 1 and phase 2, the state and federal historics, and then EOHLC, usually when you apply for the 4% credits, they will include in your award certain subordinate loans, which would go to the partnership that's being created as the sponsor of this project. The main participant in the partnership, regardless, the 99.9% will be the bank, the investor, and HRA would have 10% financial participation within the general partner.
Right. So let's plan on getting either a call together with some more members of the team And just, I'd like to shoot my questions via email just so your team can be prepared
Yeah,
to review those and answer anything that I have. But yeah, I feel like I need to digest it a little bit more and do have some questions. But I definitely appreciate the outreach and you being here tonight to explain to the board your thoughts. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, Jane, thank you, and I think that, again, a lot to digest, and I was just gonna say, I wonder if there should be one HRA member appointed to maybe join that conversation.
That was
I think
gonna be
that's
my-
probably, yeah, I think that's helpful.
That was gonna be you.
The board can delegate some authority to this person to partake in the conversation, just to be, cognizant. It should be like one person, not a quorum or anything like that, so.
Pat or Tom. Nothing against anybody else, but as chair, but I think you might be more in this world.
I certainly wouldn't have no objection to that, so it's up to the chairs to.
Yeah.
So that's one, and I think my other question was, it piqued my interest, is how would you define a financial interest and what might be too preliminary to determine what that might actually be, but I'm just trying to get a sense of the scope of what our responsibility might be.
So, like I said, no responsibility, no liability, no investment. In terms of actual cash flow participation, it's hard to give an exact number, but back of the envelope, yeah.
Or a pass.
You're saying from a tax perspective?
I guess I'm trying to figure out how you define it, and maybe I misheard you, but you talked about a financial interest, and I didn't know if that meant money out of our pockets or.
The opposite. So if there was excess cash from operations or from a sale of the property, a share of that would go to the HRA. So the opposite of you giving money.
Thank you.
Is it fair to say then that we give you added leverage?
You give us, you would provide the project really your name, your sponsorship, which would really help it move forward. And in exchange, you would be receiving that financial participation.
And it would probably be the same current, I think, the word responsibility kind of holds a lot, but I think that, you're right, you do most of the heavy lifting on applying for the tax credits, we fill out a few forms. The UPP, they wrote 95% of it, Jennifer formatted it and submitted it. So there's still gonna be some that kind of copacetic kind of back and forth, but I think we talked about, it's more about the liability. HRA is not gonna be liable. That's the biggest piece. So it would be just the continued, like you said, the continued sort of working relationship we have.
Right.
As far as grants under our name, but they tend to do most of the work for it.
Community support.
Right,
Okay.
community support, which these projects can't happen without.
Thank you. And Attorney Mantleski, thank you. Haga, you'll be hearing from our attorney.
I do have one question.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned that there was a project here in Holyoke that had happened before similar to this. Any recollections or reflections on what that looked like?
So I'll take a first stab, and actually, I don't think HRA was involved, but we actually, talking today, we thought maybe we should actually talk to Matt Manzo from the HHA to talk about it, because as was mentioned earlier, HHA has already also formed a separate entity for phase 2, but also they've received property from the city under that entity as well. I will say the library was a project that the city created a new for-profit entity to go after new market tax credits. So that was a private-public partnership as well. So that was a separate entity was made. Rory Casey probably could give some, I think Jay Driscoll was the attorney on that. So that was a partnership creation with the city and to get tax credits. So there's some precedent, if you will, on this. And then, of course, I think it's, to Carl's point, it's taken the relationship that HRA and Win already have and kind of taken it to another level in an entity, an official. But we were gonna, like I said, we're gonna reach out to Matt and kind of get maybe his take on this too.
Yeah, it's interesting how you mentioned that because, we were having the same questions that you just asked and so it's a good, if there's a resource in the city that can provide us some kind of like comfort level that, hey, this is not unusual, but, we're also gonna research, some of these other, arrangements that Haggett provided us. We're looking for the one that says the redevelopment authority did this somehow, but that's the easiest comparison or an example to look at, but,
And Attorney Mantaleski, I'd also say, we all love and like working with Matt, but I wonder if you don't want to reach out to Attorney Chesky, who probably was the brains behind most of those agreements.
100%.
So some of the things that we know and celebrate here in Holyoke have had this in the past.
yeah.
Kathy?
I just had a question for Hagup, going back to the lottery tomorrow, and the 200 applicants, and thinking about the phase 1 of Housing Authority, South Holyoke Homes Project, and how they had over, I think it was like 1,000 applicants. Now, obviously that wasn't income restricted or, age restricted either. So you would expect, an increase in applicants for those properties, but I'm curious, high or low, the 200 applicants, like what's your sense of how well the project is sort of out there? You talked a bit about like how there are people applying that like don't consider themselves, affordable housing candidates and that sort of thing, within like the 55 plus age group, but I know you guys have done other projects, so where's this ranking in terms of how many applicants in the first thing? And then my follow-up question is just about, I'm assuming if the lottery's at City Hall, there might be some press on this. Will hopefully, people will also be let know that they can still apply, that this isn't just a one-time lottery thing. That's a comment or a question, but
Definitely. We'll make sure people know that. Regarding how this stacks up on other projects, I would say right exactly what we usually see, couple hundred. Sometimes they get flooded for one reason or another. So once in a while, you'll see 1,000 or 2,000. And that's often due to maybe everybody in a given public housing community puts their name into a lottery. In this case, we only have, I think it's 13 units at 30% AMI. So there aren't a ton of units for the true housing authority type residents. I think, and that's where the more market rate style people are going to make up a lot of the residents of this project.
great, thanks.
Any other discussion? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Great. Moving on to 123 Pine Street.
Yeah, I just, I always have more, with in our call with Haggett yesterday, Jennifer and Aaron, he mentioned that they were able to do more with the grant, UPP grant we received to do all of the roof on building 4, which they weren't sure they could do. And so that really helps the phase 2 of the project. So they're wrapping that up and it was good to hear that they were able to get more done with that. So we just one more thing to continue with the progress. And I think we're also assisting Haggett with discussions with the adjacent rail property, and we're hoping there's some traction there. We're kind of encouraging a dialogue between the two entities with the PRR and Win to get a deal done, and we'll see. We're all cautiously optimistic.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'll add that Alyssa Augustine, who represents Win with regard to historic tax credits, appeared at the Historical Commission meeting this last Monday to share the information that they received, the bifurcation and the acceptance of needing to demo building 1 and 2 So the commission's fully aware, and I let her know that she will still have to come to the commission once a demolition permit is pulled, because that activates their demo hearing. And so they're aware of it, that shouldn't be, an issue moving forward. So I was glad that they were proactive in approaching the commission now as opposed to waiting until later.
And that's why your packet is 99 pages long. The report, when I first
That's why I put, review at your leisure.
the report that they submitted to the historic commission, and I think, well, and I think that's the commission, the
Yeah,
report to the state and the.
and the feds,
Yeah,
right.
so, well, there's pages and pages of pictures, so.
Yeah, so they're handling it, they're being proactive with it, which is good to see, you
Yeah.
know, so.
We're ready to move on to 1, 2, 3 Pine.
Daphne, you good? Yeah.
Please.
The letter was sent, and I don't think Attorney Mantaleski, I don't think you've heard anything from them yet. We did get the notice that the certified letter was delivered.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard anything from anybody on that.
Okay.
So,
You know, monitor.
no.
Any other discussion from board on this? Very good. 37 Appleton Street.
I can take this one, maybe Jen, you can fill in the. So 37 Appleton Street is before the planning board, and there is a number of questions with their plan. Particularly, the site plan only deals with half of the lot, where they want to build the building for repairs and possibly their showroom and sales. So some of the concerns were what's happening with the rest of the lot. And they are, their designer, their firm is trying to utilize a piece in our ordinance that's called a contractor's yard. And typically when we see a contractor's yard in the city of Holyoke, it means I'm a landscaping company and I have mulch delivered, I have bricks and pavers delivered that I'm then using to go somewhere else, right? So it's my contractor's yard. We all understand it's a little bit different that's going on down there. They're typically bringing in demo material, typically in trucks, but often unloaded onto the site. Some sorting perhaps goes on and then it leaves the site. So that does not fit the ordinance of a contractor's yard, and it doesn't comply with the deed restriction of not having a transfer station there. So they're in sort of back and forth right now between, then the designers suggested that they do A&R to separate the lot into 2 lots, so that the site plan would only be dealing with the 1 lot. But then, of course, they were told they would need to establish easements to go between the lots, and they didn't like that. So they did continue the last time, so we're not really sure where things are at. The other piece was that our city engineer, in the comments to the site plan, is requesting that they do a sidewalk along the entire property, and they're not too interested in doing that. And so Attorney Mantaleski and the planning department and engineering department met the other day, talked about what is the city's leverage to have that. And I think it's in line with our vision of what we want that area to be. We still realize it's industrial, but of course it spills right into residential. It is an active area of pedestrians, obviously a lot of foot traffic. You may know that we applied 3 times to a federal grant that would give us planning to do it, to look at that entire street. And we had talked about, you know, expanded sidewalks to have walking and biking and all that kind of good stuff. We did not get that grant. So it's hard for us to tell like a developer, like, hey, you should beautify your lot and put in the sidewalk, even though no one around you has that, right? So it is a little bit of a struggle on that area. But they continue to operate down there. If you drive by, you can see lots of trucks still down there. So I will check in if I can get any kind of update on when they're back to the planning board. I will just send an email to let people know, but they did continue the last time at the planning board. And
Yeah, I think it's, Aaron, I think
Yeah.
it's continued out until June.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. There was a lot of discussion and about revisions that may need to be done. So it's either later in May or June. But I can get you that date.
Oh, were you at the planning board last night?
I was.
It was a long one. Okay.
It was a long one. It was good times.
Yeah. Was there any other update that we should be aware of from that conversation? Or did I give enough of an overview?
No, I think you hit all the good points.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
my only concern is that we, be it the planning board, or in this instance, don't give any degree of excuse for them to be able to wedge out of being able to procrastinate.
Okay.
I think we moved assertively, rightfully, and now it's the planning board, and as we know from time to time, sometimes they get a little into the weeds. And that's the worst thing that's gonna happen, because that's really become nothing but a dumping ground.
The area, yeah.
I go by there often enough every day.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned that we not at least legitimize it, not so much that we're doing it by design, but even inadvertently, like the planning board. Keep it moving.
Yep, but again, sometimes, and I know sometimes the planning board gets to be the target, but it is often the applicant that is not either providing the right information or trying to find,
Finding the loophole.
finding the loopholes. I mean, planning board and our principal planner is a cross the Ts, dot your Is, it's black and white, it's in the ordinance, in a position where every development that comes through wants to circumvent most of the Ts and the Is. But from smaller, big, so I think in inertia, it's naturally a frictional relationship. I think is we're trying to say this is what you have to do. But yes, they're not over, and this is an industrial sector. They're not overthinking the plantings and that kind of stuff. But these are, if you're going to divide property, then you need easements if you're going to cross it. That's just the way, that's the deal. So, and again, I think that also the planning board, and particularly the staff, heard from us of like, we don't want a transfer station there. It's in the deed. And so even though we realize what they're doing down there now is treading the line. So, but I don't know, totally appreciate you, Carl, and totally hear you. So, but on this one, I think for now, I think it's still a back and forth.
We've got to hold American to what they stipulated early on.
Exactly.
We need a maintenance,
Right.
therefore let's get the building.
Yep.
But let's not impede them.
I think it's
Right.
pretty apparent that they're not gonna build what we want them to build. Like, they're not gonna just suddenly say, oh, okay, fine. I mean, to Carl's point, I just think we need to come up with a plan and move things along.
Keep it moving through the planning process.
Other discussion, one more? No. Great. High Street?
So this is in relationship to the site readiness grants. So area 4 of the urban renewal plan, the URP. As you know, we got the site readiness grant through Mass Development, and we've gone through their scope. John and then with Jennifer and I put together sort of our scope. So we've kind of combined the two pieces. We'll be contacting Ben Murphy tomorrow with this very kind of sloppy working document.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, a little Frankenstein working document, lots of cross-outs and lots of, this is what we want to put in here. So we are hoping, and he was more or less in agreement with the direction we wanted to go, understanding we've done the community outreach, and that we really want to have, how much is it going to cost to keep this building and rehab it, and how much is it going to cost to demo it, what are the restrictions, what are the environmentals. We are finally getting into one of the properties that we're targeting for this site readiness grant on the 22nd or 23rd? 23rd. Papermans, yeah. So the scope of work hopefully will be quickly revised in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully, I don't know if I assume we need some kind of approval, so hopefully that'll be for the next meeting. And again, Stantec, the company is in Holyoke right now doing the wayfinding plan, so they are familiar with Holyoke. So I think it is good to have similar companies working on, same companies working on projects in the city. And we are, I would also say that I did reach out to the owners of the Hapco building, and one letter was returned, one letter was delivered, and one letter MIA. So it was sent to 3 addresses. So the address that was sent to the Holyoke address that doesn't exist on Fairfield Ave was returned. The Rodeo Drive, California was received, and another address that we had for the person was not received, but he has not reached back. It was a friendly letter, a friendly certified letter. So we hope to have the scope, and again, if we need a board vote, we hope to have that at the next meeting. And I think that what John put together was, again, with Jennifer and I's input, just was sort of more direct, like, this is what we want, like, what's it gonna cost to save this building, what assets can we expand on this building, what's the structural integrity of this building, those are the things we want done.
Are they current on the taxes? No.
No, they're not current on the back taxes, HEPCO's not current either. Which gives us leverage.
The board?
My instincts tell me that they wanna get rid of it anyway. But, I mean, dump it, not get.
I remember we talked about the first proposal from Stantec, and we gave our input.
Mhm.
Is that the one you're marking up?
Yes.
Or has there been a response since then?
No, that's the one we're marking up.
We tried to do our own, rather than mark it up, because there were so many changes, we didn't want this.
I thought we were gonna get another response from them.
We did.
We kinda
We
did.
sent we sent a new document that John had crafted. And then they responded with, let's go back to our original agreement, but we'll keep this and that. So then the negotiations of editing the original agreement. And so that's where we are now is we said, okay, so we took the stuff from John's and stuck it in that agreement. And now we're trying to make it all mesh together. And so that's kind of where we are, where now we're gonna now bring it to Ben and say, this is our second, we're really pushing for activation and movement.
Other than our impatience, is there any other deadline or anything around the grant?
I wouldn't know, no, we're fine with the grant, I think it's a 2-year grant anyways.
Yeah.
It's a 2-year grant.
And it's just a planning,
Yeah,
there's no
so-
monies that exchanges hands, it's more of a consultation.
Yeah, we don't even
Type
get the
of
money,
format.
but Mass Development pays the consultants.
Yeah,
But to the extent that it's 2-year, and
Well-
every month that we
Right,
lose in negotiating the agreement, we're losing
Sure,
on
yeah.
executing.
but we still are applying to move forward too, for the same grant, we're gonna put in an application in June. Again, so that we can get further down that road.
Yeah.
So even as we're marching, this is kind of a little slower, we'll still have things to look forward to as we get down there. So hopefully, I'm hoping that all of that aligns.
I would also say the other piece that, delays are never good, so you try to find the silver lining. With the High Street project, particularly that intersection of High and Cabot Street, is one that they're looking at very seriously at a very different situation there. So there could be needed property around that intersection. Be it that lot that we already own on the corner, the synagogue lot, and so there could be needs, there could be city needs for expanding what's happening on High Street. So as we look, and then that may impact
Mhm.
what kind of development you actually want to have there, right? Because there's a different kind of intersection there, and there's a bus route, or there may be different assets there that would be like, oh, this would make much more sense to have residential here because it's right near a bus stop, right? Or it's right near this other thing, or this really makes more sense to have some green space and some, different assets because this is going to be a really busy part of this intersection. So I do think that there's so we'll still get the building information and the survey information, the zoning verification stuff, making sure we can do what we want to do. But I do think that there's some tandomness happening here with that project going on as well. We have an update meeting coming up in the next couple of weeks. They were MassDOT was just here 2 weeks ago doing the road safety audit. So I think again, the delays aren't good, but I think it's actually, okay, then something's gonna actually work well together as we start to learn more what that High Street project may look like.
And whose High Street project is that?
Mass DOT.
Yeah.
And I believe Mass Department of Transportation, for the record, and they are, working with GPI is the name of the consulting group, and they, are looking, I believe, to go out to bid in 2026 for construction in 2027. For the whole, for High and Maple Street.
And that would include that intersection and any major improvements. Okay.
Great, any other questions?
Is it related, it's in our package, that access agreement?
Which one's that?
Haberman.
Oh, yeah, yep. So that's the agreement that's getting us into the building on the 23rd.
Third.
I didn't see it on the agenda, so, but does it need our approval?
No, it was just more
Yeah, it's just
information.
more, yeah.
Attorney Mentalewski's been working with, Attorney Fryman for, a while now. And obviously, when one of the Haberman siblings passed away, there was another delay because they had to wait for a court-appointed.
Personal representative.
Thank you. And so that went into place. So it took a while. And this is not the agreement for Mass DEP to get in there. This is only for the city to get in there.
They are we've connected them all though. So
Mass DEP is aware, and Mass DEP is talking
They're
about
working on their-
Fryman to get in there as well.
But as I read it, HRA is a signatory to this agreement, so would the HRA need to approve it?
Jane?
I think that, we can do, an authorization, like if you want to authorize someone to sign it, authorize the chair to sign. Then I think that should be sufficient. Alternatively, I mean, we could change it to have it be the city, because it's really the city departments going in. And they can communicate with the HRA, so if it's a little time sensitive to get it done for, I think, next week, Wednesday. So I think that's a good point, having the HRA make sure someone's authorized to sign off on it. Or we can just have it change the party to be the city, and then the city departments can go in respectively, and then just come in for discussion with the HRA.
Well, I'm assuming that we're a signatory to this because of the grant.
More because of our interest.
Right.
I would move that we authorize the chair to execute the access and consent to enter property agreement.
Any discussion, Daphne, Tiffany?
Makes sense.
Great, we have a roll call, please.
Daphne Board,
Yes.
Tiffany Espinosa,
Yes.
Thomas Creed,
Yes.
Carl Eager,
Yes.
Patrick Beaudry.
Yes.
Yeah, so Jane, we'll have, our chair sign that tomorrow.
Are you around?
Well, or maybe Friday, this week.
Sorry.
Oh, good.
Got you back.
Me too.
Stop by Rincon for lunch or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll make a lot of it.
Excellent, okay, beyond walls.
Sure. So this is more of a update, but there will be probably some more information, coming. So, as we all know, Redevelopment Authority has a use agreement with Beyond Walls to utilize the lots at the Race and Main Street intersection, between the Armory Yard and the Cubit, between the Armor Building and the Cubit Building. We are currently working on a management agreement and a pass-through loan agreement. So the management agreement will be, well, who's responsible for what? Obviously, we did a nice little pushback on them, and we reminded them that in the use agreement, they're in charge, they're responsible for maintenance. So they will continue the contract with Tony Whitman to maintain the property. They'll be increasing the insurance to a $2 million insurance policy once the assets are on site. And then it's really just general management that the city will take on most likely, working with Stephanie Cologne in my office, as our master motion coordinator. We did have a good talk with the Parks and Rec Department, even though this is not a park, it's an activated lot. And the Parks Department, Tom Reynolds was willing to work with us on like sort of helping us manage reservations for the park, for the lot. But Tom is leaving at the end of the month. So we may be setting something up where we may need some approvals by the HRA. So more to come on that for next month. But it's a simple agreement, and in talking with Attorney Degnan, who looks at these contracts, the city really doesn't have much say since it's with the HRA and Win. So we will get you, we're doing our next pass of the agreement, John and Jennifer, and then we'll get it to this group to look at, the management agreement. The grant agreement, in trying to make things as easy as possible in working with the municipality, we have $30,000 from the Mass Gaming Mitigation Fund. In the application, it listed these lots by address and lot numbers, and it listed Beyond Walls as the contractor that we were going to work with. To make it simple, we're just trying to figure out how that money, that $30,000, can either come to the HRA or just be a pass-through of invoices. It's a reimbursable grant, so we're not gonna cut a check for $30,000 to Beyond Walls. They're gonna rent a truck to move the bend from Boston to here. We would get that invoice, we would pay it. So we would be able to track all this. I talked to our auditor and our purchasing director. They are supportive of this idea. We haven't figured out the right language for the agreement yet, so we're working on that. Again, I don't foresee, I'm hoping to not be in a situation where the Redevelopment Authority is fronting any money. I don't believe that will have to happen because it's only $30,000 and it's in the grant. And again, in our discussion with Beyond Walls, they're in a position to pay those things up front and get reimbursed. So they're okay with this, they're okay with that arrangement. I just need to figure out the mechanism to get them the money. Basically, because it's $30,000, it's over $10,000. So there's purchase, there's procurement around it. But if I can just move money to the HRA, we get to use the HRA rules. So that piece is being worked on. We're gonna work on it next week. And again, we'll send you a draft once we have it. They're excited. They will be moving assets and gravel and everything. I believe it's the week of the 14th next month. So they'll be on site before that. We are already working on Mondays at the Armory Yard coming back. We will be using the Explore Holyoke website as the website for information on how organizations can rent that lot, right? If it's an event, if it's, the city wants to use it, nonprofits want to use it, individuals want to rent it for a birthday party because it looks very cool. Looks like a park, smells like a park, but it's not a park. It's a lot activation. So there'll be some work on staff part. In the big picture, in the long term, or the second year, I mean, it's not too much long term, depends on where this goes. This is part of the Puerto Rican Cultural District. Stephanie Cologne, our Master Motion Coordinator, has money and is putting together a scope for a district manager and has money and putting together a scope for a lot manager. So there will be a point person for this lot. So when someone goes online and says, I want to rent the park Friday night from 6 to 9, that application would come to us. We would notify the lot manager. We may notify Tony Whitman, hey, can you just drive by there on Friday at 4 o'clock, make sure it's cleaned up, someone's coming to rent it. They'll get the information how to access the Connex box that has all the benches and chairs and games and whatever's in there, and then they can utilize that lot. I'm also thinking that what would be nice is if those funds, so it costs $25 an hour to rent, let's just say, that those funds come to the HRA.
I was gonna ask where that.
Those funds come to the HRA because if they go to the city, they'll be gone. If they go to the HRA, we put on a 10, 15% admin fee, we can make a little bit of money off this, but it's gonna be a lot easier for us 6 months from now, next year, we say, oh, we wanna buy new lights, or we wanna buy something, here's the money, if we can track it, it won't be part of the 473 of our money, right? It'll be, we'll know how much has come in, we'll be able to track that and say, yep, we can authorize this purchase. And I do think that we should be getting an admin fee for that.
Why would the money ever go to the city? It's our property.
Well, exactly, if it went to the Parks Department and someone wrote a check to the Parks Department, to, like, if you go to Community Field, or you rent a field, Community Field has a revolving fund. All other parks rental goes to the city coffers, general fund. So Tom was trying to work with us, like, we have to set up a revolving fund. I was like, oh my, going to the city council, like, set up a revolving fund, although I think they're a great tool, and there should be more of them in the city, because I do think that these fees and so that should be going back to different places, but that's a different conversation. So, yeah, there's no mechanism in the Parks Department. It would, so, you know, they could track it the same way we would, but we have to set up a revolving fund, which would just open up a lot more. Whereas if we just take it and track it, it's gonna be a lot cleaner and simpler. That will all be in the agreement, it'll all be much more spelled out.
Other questions, comments from the board? I agree, Tom, and I agree with where you're going with this. It makes a lot of sense, and it's an activated lot, not a park, but I walk my dog through Community Field almost every day, and particularly on the weekends and nice summer evenings. The spaces that are available for reservations, I am so happy to see them being used by families and people all the time. It's such a great asset. There's obviously need and demand in the city for it, so to have more of it, I think, is a great thing for us to be able to do.
So and I just said their plan is to have everything there by June 1st. And then they're planning on doing a sort of ribbon cutting and community event on June 14th. But we'll get to that information.
Thank you. Daphne?
What are the amenities that are going to be rentable? Like, I don't even understand I thought it was art. So I don't know.
Yeah, great question. So on the lot, and I should have gotten I'll get it to you tomorrow. The concept is, so starting, if you remember where the tiny house was, that area, if you've been to the library, or if you saw the Wisteriahurst, if you didn't, you'll get to see it this summer. The Matria exhibit, the 6 photographs of Latina leaders in the community will be placed there. Julian Helpin, I think, is a local artist, and he did the frames, and so it's weather resistant. So it's been at the Wisteriahurst, now it's at the library. If you get a chance to go check it out. So that'll be in that corner. The assets that Beyond Walls is bringing is, one, the Bend, which is probably about the length of this room. It's a wavy sort of bench, long bench. People can sit on it, lay on it. I think there's might be places to plug in. It's currently been at a park in Boston near the JFK Museum, in one of those parks out there. It's a very cool art piece, and just invites people to kind of hang out and sit on it, lay on it, eat, hang out. And then there'll be 2 Connex boxes. One of them will be filled with tables and chairs, giant Jenga, those kind of things, as well as possibly a stage that could be easily put together. We're not sure if the stage will be permanently on the ground, or if the stage will be something that can be taken apart and put in the box. We haven't figured that piece out yet. But it's mostly tables and chairs that will be in that box. The second Connex box is built out to be a bar. Whether we end up using it as a bar or a restaurant or a cafe, we will see. But it basically opens, and there's tables, there's a bar, there's chairs, there's stuff there, there's shelves. It's all built out, ready. We're not sure if we'll utilize that this first year, if we'll just keep it closed, or if at some point we'll be able to utilize that as well. That would take more supervision and more agreements. But so that'll have that in there. Whether or not it's used in this first summer, we're not sure. Like, it might be better to get an operator for it at some point. Maybe that could be White Lion, we're not sure.
2 rounds of drinks will do it.
2 rounds, exactly. And to your point, Daphne, there is the plan on that 14th to have, they're bringing in an artist to have a community paint of those Connex boxes. So there will be murals. And then I think that Stephanie is bringing a second art piece more on the Race Street side, kind of right next to where Armour Yard happens now. in that sort of space, in that, towards the front of Ray Street, in that corner towards the Cuban. There'll be a second art piece there.
All right, so, are there bathrooms at Community Field, like porta potties
There's gonna be porta potties there. Yes, there will be
Okay.
porta potties.
That's like,
Porta potties.
that's the piece I was
Porta
missing.
potties.
I was like, people are gonna pay rent, where,
Porta potties
Okay.
will be there because porta potties are gonna be there for the armory yard. So
okay,
they'll be locked, they'll be open when I think we're gonna keep them locked during general time and give people the code or keys to open them during rental time. I don't think we're gonna keep them open all the time, unfortunately, but yes. Yeah, so that was part of the armory yard activation. That's a whole separate, yeah, so armory yard starts again, June, July, and August, on Monday nights from 5 to 8. And we'll be utilizing that new activated space.
and so, okay, here's my, sorry, I'm stuck on the porta potties. Is Armor Yard paying for the porta potties, or is the city, like, who's?
TAC,
who's-
tourism, mass gaming grant.
Okay,
So we
okay.
authorized $6,000 for the armory yard. It goes to pay for the porta potties for the 3 months, a manager, a license agreement to use music, and we're possibly looking at buying a hotspot for the area.
Okay.
So that was based on the budget from Dennis last year.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that covers the porta potties, like I said, the music rental, music licensing for the 3 months. So again, if we're gonna keep the porta potty there longer, we'll have to have that discussion, you know, so in July to think about if the porta potties will be there longer, we'll have to build that in. So that money was paid, that's money paid for the Tourism Advisory Committee, to the Mass Gaming Mitigation Fund. Which is also the money used to activate the lot. So we're really using that money. So go to the casino.
Did I hear you say that money was specifically allocated? How did that happen?
So and Jennifer, feel free to jump in. So the first 2 years of the Mass Gaming Mitigation Fund, we just wrote applications saying, we want to do these things. They sound fun. Let's do a plan. Let's do event supports. Let's do this. Let's do that. The last 2 years, it's been a block grant. So they actually come to us ahead of time and say, what do you want to do with this? Here's we're allocated $200,000. So we put in public safety stuff. This is the money that we've used for the shuttle bus to go back and forth from MGM to events in Holyoke, at Parade Weekend, Petronalis Festival, doors open. We're gonna be expanding that to things like go to the mall and Santa Claus is there and different stuff. So we put in there because they give some guidance as to things we can use. We're getting money for Valley Bike through the Mass Gaming Grant, for bike share programs, micro transit. But in there, they talked about lot activation.
Okay.
And so we wrote it in there and they approved it. And so again, working with the purchasing directors of the past and current, we were advised if you write into the grant who you're working with, it makes it easier. We haven't quite found that easiness, but yes, it does make it a little bit easier.
So I think I'm connecting the dots. So that grant was made to the city, and you're trying to figure out how to get that money to the HRA.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, the city got that grant, exactly. Yeah, and just to make it easier, because the city is just challenging when when it takes a long time for invoices to get paid, and then if someone's not a vendor, they gotta be a vendor, that adds a month, right? It's just, and then when and it's even harder when it's like short money. Oh, I just need to go buy lights, $500, right? It's like, so with the redevelopment authority and our ability to, you know, get the invoice and pay it much quicker, I think it's gonna be a better asset. And I think it's in line with the mission of the HRA. We can start saying that we're part of doing this activation of lots. We're the ones doing WinnDevelopment. We're the ones activating empty lots for art. We're the ones working on Haberman's, and, you know, I think that gets us more in the light and in the line of what we want to be doing.
It does, however, make us accountable for that money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there needs to be controls in place to make sure that the money's actually spent the way it's supposed to be spent.
Yeah, and Jennifer has been, you know, a lion on these grants, amazing at writing them and then managing them. And we do quarterly reports, so they get quarterly reports from us on everything we're spending.
Itemized expenses,
yeah.
Receipts.
Yeah, so we will.
So
On the
if the
back
money
end.
came to the HRA, you would do that on our behalf.
Exactly, yeah, 100%. So it wouldn't, and again, we're not cutting a check to be on walls. It'd be send us the invoice and we'll pay you back. It's all reimbursable. Not easy to activate these limits.
Maybe to Daphne's point, I think I'm understanding this is becoming a bigger deal than I thought it was gonna be,
Me too. Yeah.
but I get it.
And the other thing to mention too, I'm not sure about the bend, but all those other assets that are coming, if in 2 years when this first agreement comes to end, or if we end up getting some developer that wants these lots and we give them the 30-day notice, which is in the agreement, those assets are ours. I think the bend might go back, but those conic boxes and everything in there, those are ours, so they can go to another lot. That was part of the original idea, was like, Holyoke is getting these assets. So at one point when we first started this, they were gonna live here for the first 2 years and then possibly go to High Street at the former Essex building. That, and for the TDI, that's not moving as fast as we thought because there's been some other issues that we don't even talk about with that project. So, but anywhere, if we end up selling this lot or at the end of 2 years, we decide we don't want to continue this, those conic boxes, all those things in there are ours. So they can be placed somewhere else in the city. I don't know if we're buying the thing.
To be put in the HRA warehouse. There are some issues.
Or Springdale Park, I don't know, somewhere, an actual park.
I ain't going to my garage.
Can we just take over Haberman's as our warehouse? Is that?
Yeah,
The second half, lot that they,
oh yeah, we can take the 37 Appleton lot, there you go.
Great. Any other discussion on this topic?
Are we going into executive session?
No,
We don't need
not
to.
tonight, no. Well, I appreciate that this is a lot more complicated, but it sounds like it's actually gonna be a really great final product, so.
I think I think that we will make sure all, the liability, I mean, we're already not liable, so we already got that in the
Yeah.
agreement, that's the key. And yeah, it's, as I mentioned to this other developers today and this other project, whenever something new for the city, it's a challenge. Right? So how does this happen? What are you gonna do? So it's just new. Other cities are doing this all over the place and.
Building some muscle memory here.
Yeah, and beyond, this is also, just to take 1 second, we all know Holyoke, in Holyoke, we all know Beyond Walls is the group that brings in murals. They started doing this. Their first projects were bridge lighting, which we also have $30,000 from Mass Gaming Mitigation Fund that's gonna go out to RP. And the artistic underneath the bridge lighting stuff, and activating lots. And then during COVID, they went into like activating empty lots so people could gather. So they did a lot of the hand sanitation sites and all this lighting and picnic tables and benches. And so that's really actually started. The murals came second and obviously giving them more recognition, but they started in doing these activations of empty lots.
So is there maybe a long-term vision for us around how we would want to be thinking about that long-term? I mean, I know right now we're like just trying to get out of the gates, it sounds like. So, that makes sense, but it sounds like, in a perfect world, these sites will be developed and we'll move on. And so sort of what is the string of pearls that we can envision, how to activate our own city? And that, I just actually don't know.
No, I mean, and I think I would just say 2 quick things on that. One, because these assets will end up being ours and Beyond Walls wants to keep working with us, we couldn't move these, right? So if someone says, well, we want to develop this lots and we're gonna, great. I think we need to look at this next year, the year after. As developments are happening, we're gonna need some green spaces and some places for people to gather. Will this be a permanent thing? I don't know. I'm not saying yes or no. Does Beyond Walls buy it? I don't know. Right? Is this or is that, if phase 1 of open squares, market rate housing, 88 units goes the way we think it will, and then they do a second phase and they've got 150 people living in an open square, maybe it makes sense to keep some green spaces in these kind of areas, right? You got Lighthouse School, you've got an event space, you got Mass Humanities, you've got the Cubit. Does it, but someone has to purchase it. We're not gonna stay in this leasing it out, right? So we don't want to stay in this position. Same with Win. We're hoping Win buys this at some point, right? So we don't want to stay managing this. We want to activate things and get out of the way.
Okay, just to add to it, I think just what's gonna also help this area is the Armor Building that's gonna be open within
Yeah.
certain
Weeks, yeah.
months, yeah, and that bookends this whole area, so,
Yeah.
and they did a great job, so.
Yeah.
And HRA supported that also, so,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah.
Great. Other business?
and a couple of
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
so,
Locked out.
we were approached by an individual who was working with a group downtown, but middle areas, 380 and.
One Holyoke.
Yeah, one Holyoke, and did a lot of really interesting stuff that had a lot of reference to the urban renewal plan. So we want to share the report that he provided to us, if nothing more than for awareness that this is being talked about in the community. And we had a chance to meet with him today. Brings a lot of really positive energy. I think there might be a little bit of a disconnect. His name is Jacob Allen, and I don't know if anyone's crossed paths with him, but he goes back and looks at the innovation district that some folks might remember was kind of started when the computing center came to the city, and that kind of fizzled after a few years. That effort with the computing center as their focus kind of. This is going back about 10 years at least. So we'll share that with the board. If nothing else, for awareness, we'll see where it goes. Maybe we have them in at some point, but really interesting and he really put together a good report. So we'll share that with the board. And I think it's okay if we mention 174 Lyman.
Yeah,
right?
oh, yeah.
So,
public now.
174 Lyman, the old paint shop, the corner of Lyman and Maple, they received their HDIP award. It was just under $1 million, about $975,000. And it's really, I mean, even up to this point, they did a great job getting it cleaned up as they had promised. Now, there was no, the property was, or is in the urban renewal plan, but it's one that we really didn't have that active a role. We supported them through the housing development incentive program for the city and some local tax incentive, but really that $1 million grant is going to help them really do a nice project there. And haven't really seen it since before the parade, but I guess they did a nice job. And they're very excited. I think it was, they just got word in the last couple of days, so.
Yep, they got the announcement that's out now, and the award ceremony is Tuesday in Fitchburg, I believe.
Oh,
Great news.
Yeah.
Units.
14.
I think 14 units.
Yeah, and,
I think they're moving their business there. I'm not sure what they're doing.
yeah, and, that goes along with what, the Urbanist is doing at the northern end of High Street, as well as, we haven't heard much about Open Square, but they were awarded a much larger grant either. So that's another 85 units there. So yeah, there's quite a bit happening, and it's really good to see. They're relatively small, the developer. I mean, there are a couple. Elliott Fire Sprinkler Systems is the company, and they got into some property development, and I think a lot of the help goes through, I'm not sure if the board was that familiar with the consultant that the city received, Lynn Sweet, that helps some of these downtown property owners look at what programs are out there to help. And she's been I think a great help to some of these small businesses and developers.
Do we have a shared drive for HRA? We should send them we should send them the toolkit. Just so they have it. Yeah, so we received, when I first started, we received a mass housing grant called the HUB program. And we did a couple of studies in downtown, get some data, but I ended up bringing on a consultant, Lynn Sweet, and she's a housing consultant, and she is responsible for bringing in the HDIP award for Open Square, for the Elliots, for Vadim and Bill. She's brought in the UPP grants, so she's helped a couple other, so she's probably helped bring in over $5 million probably to the city over the last 3 years. And so she helps them navigate all the programs that are out there.
And she tried to help the folks at 123 Pine. It just happened to be outside of a census tract.
Yeah, and a little too late. Yeah.
Awesome.
Very good.
Anything else?
It's probably, but,
No.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Daphne Board,
Yes.
Tiffany Espinosa,
Yes.
Thomas Crean,
Yes.
Carl Eager,
Yes,
Patrick Beaudry.
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
big sign now.
Thank you.